Jack from B&T MacFarlane. Today we're going to go over the KX040 from Kubota, so let's get into it. I'm very excited to go over the Kubota KX040 today. It's got to be one of the most popular excavators that we sell at this dealership, and one of the most popular excavators from Kubota, period. You see piles of these around, and a lot of people absolutely love these machines. It weighs about 4.5 tons, so depending on the configuration you get, it's going to weigh about 9,000 to about 9,500 pounds, and it puts in that sweet spot. The blade on the standard blade is only 5 feet 7 inches across, so you can get into a lot of backyard applications where a slightly larger excavator might not be able to fit into. And it also gives it a little bit more lift capacity, being a KX model. I did make a video on the difference between the KX series and the U series, but the biggest difference is that the KX series, it's going to have a tail swing out the back, so when you spin that machine around, there will be a significant counterweight that hangs off of the back, but that allows you to have a slightly narrower machine width with a larger lifting capacity. And the KX040, it's got the most configurations possible out of an excavator from Kubota. You can get it with a cab like you see behind me. You can also get it in a ROPS or a canopy model. And then there's 3 different blade configurations you can get. You can get just the normal straight blade like this one here. You can get an angled blade that just angles left to right like that. So if you're doing any kind of backfilling on the trenching, instead of having to reposition your excavator going forward and back the whole step of the trench, you can just drive forward with it angled a little bit to the left or the right and backfill your entire trench. And there's also a 6-way blade option, so it'll move left and right like this, up and down, but it'll also move side to side. And we don't see that too often. They're a pretty rare excavator nowadays to have that 6-way blade, but it is an option on this excavator. So we're going to talk about some of the specs up here on the boom. That's what you guys really care about when you're buying an excavator of this size. So the digging depth on this, you're going to be digging at about 11 feet 3 inches down to a 2-foot flat bottom. So that's going to be kind of the max digging depth, which is a nice size because you can dig a lot of swimming pools and a lot of larger excavation projects with this machine. The reach on it too is going to be nice. It's going to be 18 feet 3 inches out to the max reach of the boom. And it'll also have a max dumping height of about 12 feet 9 inches. So you will be able to use this to load material into the back of triaxles. The only thing about this excavator, I know there's a lot of excavators in this class that have an extended boom or an extended reach version. This one does not. This is the only configuration that this boom does come in. Looking at the bucket, it comes with the standard Kubota quick coupler, so that's going to be the wedge style. This has a huge advantage over the pin grabber because it actually sits flush with the pins on the boom. So if you look at the spec sheet, the breakout force, the bucket breakout forces, they're going to be exactly as you see in the spec sheet as they will be in a real world application. A lot of manufacturers, they use a pin grabber system, but that kind of limits your bucket breakout forces because the pin grabber system extends the bucket away from the actual pins on the machine, lowering the bucket breakout forces. Up here, this is a pretty standard configuration. We normally send it with a 24-inch tooth digging bucket, a hydraulic thumb, and then a 36 or 42-inch flat ditching bucket for any kind of grading or backfilling that you have to do. Next up, we're going to talk about the tracks. There's 2 types of tracks you can get with this machine. You can get them on the rubber tracks like you see here, or you can get them on steel tracks. We don't see too many steel tracks around here because a lot of people, they use it for landscaping in residential neighborhoods or some light brush work. We only really see the steel tracks if you're going into a really heavy duty, rugged, rocky terrain. That's when we might start selling the steel tracks. But again, these will be fixed tracks. They don't open and close like you would see on some smaller excavators like the 2-ton series. But again, it's going to be about 5 feet 7 inches across, the same width as that blade. Now taking a look at the engine on the KX040, it will be a 40 horsepower Kubota diesel engine. It does sit above the 26 horsepower, so you do have to have a regeneration system. But for the most part, as long as you're not idling it for many hours on the job site, you won't run into any issues. But if you do have to go through a regeneration cycle, the biggest piece of advice is to not hit that inhibit switch. If you hit it too many times, it will have to come into the dealership for a forced regeneration. But in general, everything on the engine, like most Kubota excavators, it's super easily accessible back here. So all your oil changes and pressure check valves and everything like that is all front and center right here. And if we take a walk over to my left, you will see all the hydraulics on the system as well as your oil cooler and your radiator. So if you need to do any kind of maintenance or any kind of changes on the hydraulic valves or any couplers, it will be all right here for you. Like a lot of Kubota construction equipment, that is one of the nicest features. You're able to raise that front window right over your head. So if you're digging in the summertime and you need to talk to one of your crewmates or someone out there, you have easy access to the outside. And as well, this cab, it does come with a full heat, air conditioning, and a radio. The radio is an option, but we sent about 99% of them with that radio. It's a pretty standard Kubota excavator up here. There's nothing too fancy. You do have your 2 control sticks on either side. As well, you do have your motion controls here, so forward and reverse, but they do also have the flip foot pedals, so you are able to drive this with your feet while controlling the bucket and the boom with your hands up here. So it is 2-speed travel too, so it does have a turtle and a rabbit mode. So if you put in that turtle mode, it's going to move a little bit slower, but you're going to have a little bit more control over the actual movement of the excavator. But if you're just traveling from point A to point B around the job site, you can put into that rabbit mode and get a little bit extra movement speed out of it. But just be in mind, when you go to turn on the rabbit mode, it isn't as maneuverable as it will be on that turtle mode. My only complaint about the KX040 is that it's still a dash floor model. If you've seen my video on the KX057-5, you'll see the brand new LCD screen that's in that excavator. It kind of changes how the excavator looks and maneuvers inside the actual operator's platform. So I hope in the coming years that Kubota can integrate that screen into the KX040. And then over here is just standard. You have your light controls, your AC heat controls, as well as your wiper controls, and then your regeneration system as well. So if you do need to hit that inhibit switch, it is over there on the right hand side. Everyone's sick of hearing about the ETAs and supply chain issues, but that's no different with the KX040. These machines are exceptionally hard to come by. So if you want to get one for the fall, I'd recommend going into your dealership and putting your name on one as soon as possible to secure it for later this summer or early fall. And as always, I just want to thank you guys for watching. And if you need help with parts, sales, or service, give us a call at 613-225-0555. Thank you.